Hi, I'm Tara Lynn of Geek Saga Entertainment, and thank you for joining us for the Geek Saga show. I'm extremely excited for this episode as it features two very special guests, the author of the newly released Disney adjacent adventure novel, Skippers of Fortune, Lafitte's Gold, James T. Castelaw, and one of my longtime besties, Chris C.B. Brennan, who helped contribute to this book. So real quick, you guys just introduce yourselves if you have social media that is public, tell people where they can find you, and then we'll continue on from there.
I'm James Castelaw. I am a former Jungle Cruise skipper, and I am the author of Skippers of Fortune. I have done a lot of media over the past 20 years. I've made online cartoons and everything, but right now I'm trying to build a universe with my buddy Brennan here to honor and respect the skippers. Check us out. We are at www.skippersoffortune.com. And on Facebook, you can find us on Skippers of Fortune. We're on TikTok, but we don't have shit on there yet.
I'm Chris, C.B. Brennan. Been working for Disney for 26 years. That's where I met James back in the day as skippers, and we've been best friends ever since. Same goes for Tara. I really have nothing to promote except for James's project. I feel like I'm the Jason Mewes to his Kevin Smith. I'm just like along for the ride, but I'm the loud one, and he's Silent Bob.
Wait a minute, didn't you cosplay?
Yeah, that was me and Uncle Steve.
I knew it wasn't James. Yeah, I remember it being Uncle Steve, but I was like, wait a minute, weren't you that character at one point?
Yeah, you've always been the Muse, even in that.
Even in that, and I was loud, and we won the contest. Uncle Steve was in character the whole time, didn't say a word.
Right.
It was amazing.
For those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, I'll get into how this happened, but this was at a Disney cast member Halloween party way back in the fall of 2001.
In the Haunted Mansion.
Yes, in the Haunted Mansion. So, as I've mentioned, I'm Tara. You can find me at Geek Saga on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky and Threads. I'm at a Geek Saga. I just refuse to use the Bird app anymore. Additionally, just want to mention the Geek Saga Entertainment Patreon. As a reminder, myself and my soon-to-be literal ride or die co-host Manny and I will be traveling cross-country together. This is happening in just a few weeks. So not only can anyone who joins the Patreon at the $3 per month level and above get consistent early access to our podcast episodes, but there will also be plenty of content from our cross-country trip that you guys will have patron-only or early access to. So make sure to check it out and join at the $3 per month level or above prior to July 15th at patreon.com/geeksaga_entertainment. Now, I'm going to try to keep this interview as organized as possible. It's also meant to be a fun discussion. And on top of that, good old CB here is the constant true chaos magnet. So we'll see how we can do.
That's another word for drunk.
I don't think it's just drunk, though. I think there is actually like a manifestation thing going on here or something.
You're chaos sober, so drunk is just...
Yeah.
That's pretty, it's just turned up to 11.
Right.
So just to give a brief explanation of how we all know or quote unquote know each other, I worked in AdLib, aka Adventureland Liberty Square. It's an area of the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World. I did this on my fall 2001 Disney World college program. P.S. If you want more info on my college program experiences, make sure to check out the Geek Saga podcast episodes. There's a lot of them. Here we go. 41, 42, 46, 50, 51, 52, 59, and 60. Anyway.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. Yeah. Well, I did a 6
I'm going to play that lottery number tomorrow.
It was a 6-episode series that I did for my fall program, and then a 3-episode series I did for my summer 2002 program. That's why there's so many. But anyway, Chris was a full-time AdLib employee while I was on my college program, and I actually became really close friends with him and a lot of full-time cast members who I spent a bunch of time with, which was kind of like a thing that happened after 9/11. To be quite honest, I was very college program heavy the first few weeks of my program, and then 9/11 happened, and I honestly don't really know why I ended up gravitating toward the full-time cast members, although I think it was more so like the idea that you guys had real homes, you had real apartments, and they were your own homes, right? And so you were cooking meals and like watching things
you lived in Vista Way with like 5 other girls.
Right. Yeah, 3. I had a 2-bedroom.
Whatever.
But still, yeah. It
3, you got lucky.
Yeah. I think it was a little bit of a, this feels like more homey situation with the full-time people. So all that said, now we're going to do getting to know you, getting to know all about you. That's you two, by the way. Let's start with James. And then Chris, you can go go and answer as few or as many of these as you like, but a little bit of history
All right.
on when, how, or why you started working for Disney, how you ended up as Jungle Skipper specifically, if there's any story behind that. I know that with the CP, it was basically totally random. And then when and how you guys met each other and became friends.
I ended up down at Disney. I was a full-time cast member as well. I ended up down at Disney for kind of the same reason that I know Brendan will say. I ran away. When you run away, running away to Florida is one of the best places that you could possibly go. And then like going to work at Disney on top of it is just a huge part of it. So I was just tired and I was working a really good job. I was making good money in Colorado. And I always like, I'm going to be an actor because I've always done creative stuff. I always did theater. I was always doing things. And one of my bosses are like, why are you still here then? And I was like, crap, that's an excellent question. So I just packed up one day, moved down to Florida. And when I got to casting, I knew I could get into the Disney Reservation Center. I had a lot of call center experience. I could make, at that time, was like $8.50 an hour, which was good money. Like
You got $8.50. I got $7.80.
On my first college program, $6 even, y'all.
And I had left like an $18 an hour job to get down there. So I was going to take that job. It was going to be set. And they were like, oh, we could do attractions. And I was like, I don't want to push the button on Space Mountain. I don't want to do. And the first thing she said is, we have the Jungle Cruise. And I was like, give me that. Pay me whatever you need to. And I'm never going to train and learn anything other than that. And that's literally what I did. I walked out of casting and I was like, that's it. This is what I want to be. And I think probably my second day right out of training is when I met Brennan. And there's a certain banter to, I feel like
We started bantering on day one.
yeah, and the banter just connected us. And there is something about full-timers, like college programs come in and kind of jump out, but the full-timers, we create like a series of banter and we just connected. We told the jokes, we referenced the same pop culture. So yeah, that's my Disney story. Brennan?
Yeah, mine is also very similar because I did apply for the college program back in like 96 when I was still at UMass back in Massachusetts. And I was accepted, but I couldn't take it because I asked for a summer semester. They gave me fall, couldn't do it because I would have lost the scholarship or something. But then I graduated college and then I got a quote unquote real job in what everybody thought what I should be doing in the medical field. And I did that for like a year and a half, 2 years. And I'm like, no, this is not fun. This is not how I want to spend the rest of my life, is sitting in this awful place. Hospitals are very depressing. I put everything I owned in my car and said, well, where do I want to live now? You know what I like? Disney World. Just move to Disney World, see what happens. I was homeless for the first 2 months I lived here, like living out of my car, which is very easy at Disney, by the way, because there's a lot of facilities you can use as a cast member in terms of showering and cafeteria and, sleep in your car, et cetera, et cetera. The first job that I was offered at Disney was attractions because they did. Just like you, James, they like my voice. Everybody at work even now tells me that I have like a radio voice or, it's something about the bass. I don't know. So they gave me a spieling attraction, but it wasn't jungle at first. The first year was the safari at Animal Kingdom.
Oh,
That's where I met Uncle Steve. Me and Uncle Steve have parallel stories because we both trained there like at the same time. And then we both decided we were done dealing with the real animals and we both wanted to work at Magic Kingdom was our goal. And then we both put in transfers to Jungle Cruise and we got them like right around the same time. Our trainer was the great Amy Massenberg. Shout out to Amy.
She was my Pirates trainer. I don't remember her last name, but
Yeah,
named Amy, red-haired Amy.
She's definitely more of a pirate.
I've heard.
As Tara knows. Anyway, that's how I became a Jungle Cruise skipper. It was just, I wanted it. I learned the transfer rules at Disney and I put in for it and I got it.
Manifesting again.
Well, that's the thing too, is like when you go to somewhere where they need so many people to work all of those things, it's kind of easy to get a transfer there because they're like, well, we just need people. And then we met all of the characters that we'll talk about later.
Yeah, it's funny, like you bring up Amy and I know that she's mentioned in the book. You guys might get into this, her as a character a little bit more later, but when I was reading the book, I messaged Chris and I was like, wait a minute. Is this the red-haired Amy who trained me at Pirates? Because you guys apparently knew a way different Amy than I knew. The reason I'm saying this is because I was a little kid, essentially. I was 18 when I started.
You were
my
adorable.
program.
You were so adorable.
It was me and one other person, one other CP, who they were like, okay, Tara and this kid are going to Pirates. I want to say Amy, if not my first day, then certainly like during my training, I'm pretty sure she kind of was like, I don't think that they should be giving Pirates jobs to CPs. Like, this is there are people in Ad Lib who have been in Ad Lib who want to work here. And like, honestly, like at the time I was like, what the fuck, man? Like I can do this job. Yes, I'm a CP, but I'm not immature. I'm not going to be like calling out all the time. And I didn't, honestly, I did not call out once the entire, I think till like the last few weeks of my college term when I got really sick, I never called out. Listen, I took every ER they offered, but I never called out.
We all did. And then we went to the boo.
Early release, by the way, for anybody who has never worked at Disney. At the time, I was very offended because I felt like she was saying, like, you're a child, you can't do this. But age and hindsight has led me to realize that no, this was a posh job. Let's be real. Mostly in air conditioning, even when you were at Greeter, you were still in the general vicinity of air conditioning and whatnot. So at the time, I was very pissy about it. Not to her, but like in my, 18-year-old childish brain. But again, time and age has made me look back and be like, oh, no, yeah, she was totally right. Those were posh jobs. And it was only two of us. But if there was a list of full-time or part-time people who've been working at Disney for a while who were waiting to be trained at Pirates, it is unfair that
it's like doing stretch at Haunted Mansion.
And we weren't even fall advantage. We were just fall. So we were only going to be there from August to early January. Before I move on to more book stuff, I do have to ask Chris, because I swear I always thought you worked at Pirates while I was there in the fall of 2001, but apparently, did you ever work at Pirates?
For like 2 weeks.
Okay, you did train there and
I did.
worked there.
I was trained by Super Pirate. Do you remember Super Pirate?
Yes, I remember.
The guy they called Super Pirate. What's his name?
Yes.
Eric?
I don't remember his real name, but I know who you're talking about.
I don't know, but that guy was like, I'm a pirate. I remember that I showed up on day one for training and he told me I was wearing the wrong color pants. And I'm like, well, that's what costuming gave me. He's like, no, those are the girl pants.
The girl pants were like, they were also longer. Ours were full length.
Right, yeah.
Why did they give you the female pants?
I don't know, because the guy working costuming was an old man. And I just said, I need pirate pants, please. And then I think he showed me two colors and he was like, would you like purple or red? And I'm like, I don't know, purple. And that was my day one of training.
Y'all's were like Jodhpur pants. They were short. And honestly, I would have preferred that because I'm 5'9" and the stupid girl pants were never long enough for me. Give me those cutoff pants where I can wear the striped socks any day. I think now they let them do that too. So you were trained, but you never really worked there.
I was trained for a week, but I worked like maybe 5 shifts until I got the call. Here was my whole thing, was that I came to Disney for one purpose. I was in love with Pleasure Island, even before.
Oh my God.
When I was in Massachusetts in bartending school and visiting Pleasure Island way before I worked there, I'm like, this is fun. This looks fun. I'm going to work here. And I was on the waiting list to bartend at Pleasure Island for like 2 years. That's kind of also the only reason I was in attractions, because it was a long waiting list because everybody wanted to work at Pleasure Island. And then I only worked at Pirates for a week because I got the call on like a Friday or whatever that I would get to bar back. I didn't get bartender immediately, but that's how it worked back then. We didn't have bar backs anymore. But I got hired as a barback at the Adventurers Club. And what kind of transition is that naturally? Is going from Jungle Cruise to Adventurers Club. That's the evolution of my Disney career.
Okay, let's get into some book basics. So anyway, James, super basic question. What was your original inspiration for these stories? Because I know this is going to be a series and you're already working on the next ones.
Honestly, the original inspiration from the story, I mean, I'd be amiss to not say Indiana Jones and like classic pulp adventure novels, but truthfully, it was a combination of The Skippers, and I spent almost a month and a half in New Orleans last year. So it's a combination of a city that I desperately wanted to tell a story about and these people who I created characters of in my mind over the past, 2.5 decades that I felt really needed a story to be told. Because as much as I love The Rock and the Jungle Cruise movie, I think they missed what to me the jungle was about. And the jungle wasn't about the adventure, it was about the Skippers. And so I was like, how do I tell a story about Skippers, bring in New Orleans, and then years and years of pop culture running in my head. I have adventure stories I could always go to. And I was the kind of kid who had the Time Life books about mysterious islands or lost treasures. So it was the wanting to tell the story. And the adventure part was just a natural backdrop because of the people I wanted to tell the story about and the location I wanted to tell the story in.
Am I right? Is there some Goonies inspiration here? Like it feels like, okay.
There was one time when me and James were like riffing about the story in the middle of the night. And then James specifically asked me, am I just ripping off the Goonies right now? No, it's different.
Well, because especially when you get to like jungle puzzles or, jungle traps, which was from the Dora the Explorer movie, which when they talk about a jungle puzzle, it's what I relate in my head. It's hilarious. The live action Dora was hilarious. But when we ended up in the traps underground, it very much felt like Goonies.
I also enjoyed the live action Dora.
Specifically in regard to the adventurers slash skippers aspect of it, how much of that is based around Jungle Cruise and its lore? And when I say Jungle Cruise and its lore, because, you guys obviously, I've been on the ride dozens of times probably, but like you guys have been on it hundreds, if not more times. So like, are there things that even like a slightly more than casual person wouldn't know that are references or like little, hints, tidbits, Easter eggs?
I feel like there's very little reference to the actual ride, as much as more references to like the people and
and that counts too.
It's kind of a sideways thing too. Because there's a lot of things you have to walk a very specific line. A lot of it is when I think about it, I think about the radio that plays at the Jungle Cruise, the skipper radio, and the little stories.
Yes.
What we are the taking it out from the little stories that we're told. Because the skippers were known in the Jungle Cruise, and then Disney has a whole other thing called their Society of Explorers and Adventurers, which sets up their whole universe in there. So the skippers were just a tiny part of a story that I thought needed broadness. So yeah, I took some legends from there, but mostly it's skipper radio. I heard that in the loop so many times. It was really easy to pick up. There's a whole other space of skippers that we don't know about. There's a whole other universe of things happening that aren't directly related to the Jungle Cruise because they have their own radio, they have their own universe that Disney briefly touches on and the queue. So if it was coming from anywhere, it's really that and more to the Adventurers Club, which I know we'll probably talk about in a minute, but it's more of a tie. If there's a closer tie to Disney, it's a tie to the Adventurers Club mostly and their lore.
Yeah, that was what I was about to ask, is like also because I personally wasn't sure and I am curious, is any of it or how much of it is inspired by the Adventurers Club at Pleasure Island? And forgive me for having only ever visited the Adventurers Club like maybe twice ever. To be fair, I only briefly, I was so young when I did my college program. I went to Disney after I was 21, maybe 3 or 4 times as like a seasonal cast member, but like I was usually there for just a few weeks. So I was working and not going out to PI every night or whatever. But because when did Adventurers Club close?
2008.
So I only went like twice ever. So yeah, I'm wondering like how much the Adventurers Club really inspired it more so maybe than Jungle Cruise, obviously.
I'll say one thing and then I'm going to let Brennan take this one because the Adventurers Club is really his area. Really, to me, the inspiration becomes for the Order of Wayfarers and Wanderers. It's really the tie-in to the Sea organization, which the Adventurers Club was all about. Pleasure Island was entirely connected to the Sea organization. So for me, they're
the same thing.
Yeah, it's a good connection. So that's where it's to the Adventurers Club. But Brennan can take it from here because he's our Adventurers Club expertise.
Real quick, I thought Pleasure Island was like a reference to Pinocchio?
It was not.
I honestly don't know. I never worked there, so I don't know if you guys got like special training into the background of Pleasure Island. That
they also had a giant sign with Jessica Rabbit on it, and it said Pleasure Island, but it might as well have said "Girls, Girls, Girls." That's how sexy that sign was.
The initial design of Pleasure Island was based off of a sea member called Meriwether Pleasure. And every club had its own legend to go along with it. So if you would look on the outside of these clubs at Pleasure Island, there would be plaques and it would detail the history of why this club is what it is and how it's connected to Meriwether Pleasure, who was a member of the Society of Explorers and Adventurers. So that's the synergy story that they never really held on to a lot. But those of us who
they taught me that in like training, like it was called like urban training. And I'm like, urban? This isn't urban. This is Pleasure Island. To go back to the Adventurers Club thing. Adventurers Club, when it was invented in like, when did Pleasure Island open? Like 89, like right around.
I think
when,
it was
like,
89.
Yeah. And they designed that place to be a club based on the Jungle Cruise. It's the same thing. Like you can't ask about skippers without talking about the Adventurers Club. If you went to the Adventurers Club back then, you'd walk around and there were Jungle Cruise Easter eggs. Even when we were there as skippers, James, you walk in the queue for Jungle Cruise, there's crates that have an address that says like Pamelia Perkins, and the actual address is like the address of the Adventurers Adventurers Club.
But see, and this is where I would say that I felt the Adventurers Club was for the
Adults.
the sea people, where the skippers are out
Right.
doing the actual adventure. These are for the rich people, that they can race around the world in 80 days and shit like that. That's what it was to me.
Rich people, it only cost like $15 to get on Pleasure Island back then.
True.
Can you or are you able to point to any specific references or Easter eggs or anything other than the general, this sort of gave me the idea from Adventurers Club over like Jungle Cruise? Or is it still kind of, well, maybe not so much the people, but is it still kind of the same, like just the vibe in terms of like inspiration?
Doc Box is a reference.
Yeah, the Doc Box is the reference of the Jungle Cruise. They don't use one anymore, but it used to be where we would see what our rotation was. The Doc Box, the entire location itself. And the secret doors and stuff, it goes back to the Adventurers Club, because the Adventurers Club used to have secret doors that would open up and get you to different rooms and everything. But yeah, the most prominent Jungle Cruise thing, Brendan's right, it's the Doc Box.
I was going to ask another question about that later, and maybe there is still a question there, but did you guys use, what did they call the computer system? Did you guys use the computer system that was supposed to deploy you? I think it was CDS, Computer Deployment System.
And they still use it now. It's outdated.
We used it at Pirates and it worked okay at Pirates. But when I say it worked okay, it was like it worked okay.
Functional.
Except, yes, exactly. On the holidays where we were so busy and we were usually actually properly staffed, if not overstaffed at times. And again, this was like just fall of 2001 that I was actually full time at Pirate CP. The times that we went off CDS and did it manually, which was literally like you clock in, whatever it was a 1, 2, 3, 4 rotation. If there were 2 loads open, then whatever. But like when we were properly staffed or overstaffed, you would get so many breaks. On Thanksgiving of that year, I worked a 12-hour shift, and I will tell you, like, I got 2 lunches, 2 45-minute lunches, because at Pirates, you got 45 minutes because you were so far from the main cafeteria. But I got, God knows how many 15-minute breaks. Like, I didn't work all that much that day. It was amazing.
So that's all we had. We did not have the computer, at least as long as I worked there. We had a giant magnetic board, and each of our names were on magnets. And then they were just put in stacks of 4 on how the bumps and rotations were going to be. There were either times where you would do 2 cruises or 3 cruises at a time, and then you'd bump to the next rotation. But days we were staffed, we would do 1 cruise, and we were on break every like 31 minutes.
We were in the inner circle of the skippers, baby.
We've gone off on this tangent about working at Disney and stuff, but the one thing I'll say about that is in 2006, when I was a restaurant manager, and I was a quick service restaurant manager at studios. When I was doing that, we were using CDS, but we had full-time people employed to just basically fix CDS all the time. It would spit out, assignments, and they'd be like, nope, this isn't right. At least 60% of the time they were fixing it, probably.
It works exactly the same as you remember. They still do that.
For both of you guys, obviously, James, you wrote the thing, but how did Chris contribute? Like, was it just his general great personality and chaotic adventure being used for broad ideas, or were there specific instances used for inspiration, perhaps even like writing, editing help? Like, James, you tell your version first, and then we'll hear the chaotic version.
I'm pretty sure it's exactly what you're looking at right now.
The way it worked with us is basically we would just have evenings where we just go back and forth, and we would put people we knew in characters and shows. We're like, let's cast Ocean's 11 with all of the friends that we know. And we really do, in a weird way, associate our friends and people we know with character tropes from movies and everything. And so we would throw out just crazy ideas or dumb ideas that this character would make sense doing that. And we're like, that's a story. And at a certain point, it became like, I was like, I need to document this story. So I would start putting things down. And I thought it was going to be me writing a story about me, quite honestly. Because when I usually write, I write myself as the main character. But Brennan CB really became the main character from like the start of the book. So I would talk about where I was or kind of what was happening with the story. And Brennan would just throw out a couple different things. And like half of it would make it into the story. So there were times I think he was collaborating with me and he didn't know that he was necessarily necessarily collaborating in the story until he read the whole thing. And he's like, I remember saying that. I remember this. So yeah, it was like, it was collaboration through just talking bullshit. Basically.
I love that though, because I love that you gave the contributor credit when he didn't really even know.
It wouldn't have been a story without him. That's what it came down to. Chris took it to the next level for me. It became a story because of our communication about it.
Well, so Chris, what about you? You're getting emotional. I love this. I love this. And I say that with like literally all the love of my heart. This is why you're my big bro. Picking out things from the book, things that you remember, etc., that you're just like, oh, hey, shit, that was great. Or just be emotional. That's fine too.
Well, the whole first page. I get a call in Worcester. I went full accent.
I gotta break into this. Why were you in Worcester? Because I thought you were from like Boston area. You're from
Tara,
Worcester?
we talked. Yeah, Worcester is Boston area.
Worcester is Western fucking Mass. My grandfather is from
It's
Worcester.
Central Mass.
Whatever, Central Mass. Sorry. For some reason, I forgot that we'd had the Worcester conversation. So when I read that, I was like, why the fuck is Chris in Worcester? Anyway, so the first page is all
And
about you
I
being in
told you,
Worcester.
and Tara, I told you that I'm working on the story.
You did. But the idea of you being from Worcester had like, for some reason, you're shipping up to Boston.
So I think where you were going, Brennan, I think you were going to talk about the brick.
The Brick Office was the first place I ever drank when I turned 21.
So he would tell me stories and
Thanks.
he would name places when he would leave locations that meant a lot to him, or he would talk about places in New Orleans or anything like that. I just note certain aspects of what he was saying, like the name. Because originally I named it after a different bar.
The Brick Office is a good name for a bar, but it didn't have a sign. It was just a brick building, which was ironically right next to the driving school for teenagers. They were like connected. They were like the same building. It was like driving school for teenagers
Honestly,
and a bar.
that sounds very New England.
Yeah, and then that's how me and my friends from back in the day, when we were all stupid little 21-year-olds, we thought it was a cool bar because like, hey, we get a drink now, and it was like the first one we saw. It became a tradition that every time we went out that we have to get our first beer at the Brick Office. And that's the first page of the book, I guess.
Well, so how did you end up back in Worcester? You're still in Orlando, so that was a shock to me. I start this book open and the first page is like, oh, this is Chris, this is CB. I know this guy. And it was like, why the fuck is he back in Massachusetts? Is it a spoiler?
It's a spoiler for my story. Number one, separate me from the CB character.
Obviously.
I mean, it's me, but it's like not me.
It's you times, I wouldn't even say 100. It's you times like 70.
I'd say 11. Turned up
11D?
to 11. 11D. Jesus. But Tara, I already told you, I can't tell you because I'm writing that story. The story I'm actually working on. By the way, I'd love to thank James for this and also Yvette for like inspiring me to like go back to where I used to like write stories, thought myself as creative, and I lost that a long time ago, but I found it again. And that's what I'm working on right now is the backstory of CB. And no one in Worcester calls him CB. They call him Red. But that's the thing. It's the whole story between when the order broke up in the first chapter until CB gets the phone call. And that's the story I'm working on.
And it's like a universe. I like to call what we're doing here, we're trying to build like an open source universe. Any person, any of my skipper friends, anybody who likes the story and likes the universe, can write for it. Yeah, create something in it.
Oh, I already told Chris I want to write fanfic about like Chris's little pirate sister. But I said that before I read the book, and now that Amy is like the pirate in the book, I'm like, oh shit. I mean, I don't know. Do I want to? Okay. Anyway, sorry, James. An open source world.
Yeah, I want people to be able to create the stories in it. Well, and a lot of things, like maybe 12 weeks ago is really when we started working on this. But a lot of people, I've had people reach out to me and they're like, oh, I want a character in there. I know people. A lot of people I talked to already had a character. I already developed characters.
Actually, that leads into my last question for this particular section, which is how have your other friends, and this is for both of you guys, but more so, I guess, for you, James, probably, how have your other friends felt about seeing themselves mentioned or in certain cases even, shall we say, immortalized in this story? Because like we get NCP, right? We get the NCP with the high fives. I read that and I was just like, in real life, if you don't know, you don't know. And you're probably just like, oh, who's this weird side character who gives
Those are Easter eggs just for us. Those are Easter eggs just for us.
How have people felt about just being mentioned, but also there are like Uncle Steve and Amy are like I said, like immortalized essentially in this.
I get more about other skippers' reactions, who they read about versus themselves. Outside of Brennan, nobody really comes in and says, "Let me talk to you about how you displayed me." But they will, and it's a lot of it's Amy. A lot of people have reached out to me specifically about the Amy who is not a character that, like, when I was writing the story, I didn't know Amy was going to show up, but I needed a pirate. And I was like, well, if I need a pirate, I know exactly
Who's the best
who I want.
pirate?
So I think there are certain people who are waiting to, I think, see the development of their character. Like everybody in that little scene where we go to the past, like the last night of the Wayfarers Club, that is such a simple touch on their character that I think they're waiting to see exactly what I do with them. But the best example would be Melody, my wife, who, if you ever try to write a character about your spouse, you have to be very careful. And I don't cut a lot of things out. Mel is the one who looks at us sometimes and thinks we're on crazy adventures and everything. She didn't read it. She didn't read any of it until it came out. She didn't
Really?
read release or anything.
That's amazing.
And she was like, actually, you nailed it. The one thing that Melody would not have done is she would not have got on Amy's boat. I already don't like boats. I know it's a bigger boat, but the way you described it, I would have never got on the boat.
I feel like this is your wife. And if I was like the significant other of a person who wrote this, I would be like, yeah, I'm totally fine with this. There's literally nothing negative there at all. There are ways to do it that can be negative. And I think
Right.
that you just made your wife. And I also knew before we got into this interview that Melody was based on your wife. But also, other than I didn't know the boat thing, but I feel like there's nothing about that character that makes you think like, ooh, this guy's talking shit about his partner.
No,
you
yeah.
know?
She thinks we're goofy. You know what I mean? Like,
She's a little bit into you, but like not sure about it. I liked
Yep.
it. I liked it.
yeah, we've been together 20 years. I'm still not sure she's that into me. So, we'll see. We'll see. I'm hoping it works out.
You want to have a little bit of will they, won't they? You want
Exactly.
a Jim and Pam,
Sam and Diane.
Leslie, yeah, Sam and Diane, Jim and Pam, Leslie and what the fuck?
Ben.
What the fuck was her? Ben, yes, Leslie and Ben. Thank you. That was hers was a very like positive.
Mel-
And also, Amy's was just hilarious. This is not the Amy I knew. Like the Amy I knew was very like stringent and like, God, I have to train these fucking college program motherfuckers to do a job that other people deserve more. And
Clearly,
that's the
you've
only
never
Amy
been drunk with Amy.
I have
Yeah,
not.
No, it was probably the ale house.
And I couldn't do that because I was a baby on my college program. Here's what I have to ask. Has the NCP said anything about his appearance, a brief appearance in
He's
James
responded
Say?
on the Facebook page on some of the posts that I make about NCP, not directly the character from the book, but the lore that's created on the Facebook page. He has definitely responded directly out of that. So, and people who know NCP, just like you said, the high five, the moment, like when I first wrote it, I didn't have a high five in there. And I read back and I was like, why is there not a high five in there? That's like his superpower. It's his disarmament power that he
Yeah.
has.
His superpower was just not giving a fuck. He was like the Andy Kaufman. He would do anything for the laugh.
We all fucking loved NCP, okay?
Yeah.
NCP was
That was the
just,
point.
he was just a nice
He
fucking
was just
guy.
a good time. He was just
Yeah.
the best time.
NCP, we went to Chris's Halloween party at your Sable Palms apartment,
As
the Hurricane and Mighty
Mighty
Molly.
Molly.
And we each got like an hour of sleep, and then he drove me to the airport the next day.
I remember NCP setting his
Like-
alarm. We were like the last two awake at that party. And I'm like, hey, I love you, man. I love you. I was like, hey, I need to set my alarm to get Tara to the airport. Like,
And I kept
he's
telling him,
hilarious.
like, I can
He's
do
a
something else.
good-
I can somehow find something else, but like, good fucking person. And
He's an
we dro-
amazing human, was my point.
Yeah.
We drove the 47. I'm calling it like it's California. The 417. Wow. We drove. That was a California fucking slip.
It's 417 to the airport.
Yeah, the 417, the toll road, and we go through the toll things, and like I'm paying for the tolls, but like he's still got his hurricane mask. He's at like 6
You're
o'clock in the
basically-
morning.
Did you change? Were you still in
Yes,
your
I
Halloween costume?
changed. No, I brought all my stuff.
I love that part of the story because I didn't know that. I'm just picturing him driving down 417 as the hurricane.
He took off
But
the
also
cape,
in his
but he still
head.
had the shirt.
Also in his head, and all the makeup is like over here now because it was a wild party.
Yeah, it was a wild party. Anyway, okay. We're like an hour into this, and we have not even gotten into Tales from New Orleans.
I forgot this was a show. I just thought I was talking with
But Tales from New Orleans. We all love New Orleans, all three of us. And
course.
the city itself is basically a character in this book. So I have a few questions specifically about that I'll be asking in a bit. But first, I want to ask you guys to talk about some of your favorite things about and places in New Orleans. James, why don't you go first? Favorite things about and places in New Orleans.
For one thing is my favorite things about New Orleans is just that music happens constantly on every corner, everywhere you go, there's music. And my favorite places about New Orleans, really, I'm a Bywater kid. I love to go off of the strip and go back where the locals go. When I stayed in New Orleans for about 3.5 weeks with the Chef King last year, I lived in the Bywater. I was right around the corner from bars. I ate in the neighborhood. I learned the community and everything. I took Brennan on an awesome adventure out to the Bywater. So for me, it's really, I like to be, if I'm down near the city, I like to be near the French Market and generally that area around there and the bars around there. And then I like moving out towards the Bywater. But yeah, it's the music, it's the magic, there's lore. There's such lore and history to every part of that city that I'm a sucker for that.
Favorite places, though, before we move on to Chris.
I like
Yes.
BJ's Lounge and Vaughn's out in the
Yes,
Bywater.
I know BJ's.
Wonderful place. I like the R Bar. We spend a lot of time at the R Bar. They do a great hot toddy in the wintertime and everything. Plus, friends of mine own each of those bars, so I get to go in and see them and a lot of the community around there. So, but yeah, no, I would say R Bar and BJ's and Vaughn's are really, when I go to New Orleans, those are the three bars that I absolutely have to hit, followed by the Abbey, but I got to leave that for Brennan.
Do you have any like specific restaurants or anything? And I mean, when I say restaurants, it doesn't have to be like some sort of expensive, crazy place, like just any places that you make sure you eat at.
I go to the Clover Grill. I go to the Clover Grill all the time. Always good to eat there. And there is a Verdi Mart. There's
Yep.
Yes. And they have all that jazz sandwich, which is absolutely one of the most amazing sandwiches out there. It takes a while to get. Yeah, I call in an order at a time, about 25 minutes. It is literally just a little shopping mart, like a gas station with a deli in the back, but it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
All right, Chris,
Well, let's start with the Abbey.
Why do you love New Orleans? Okay, the Abbey. You love New Orleans because of the Abbey. Period. Full stop.
No. I love New Orleans because all of my favorite memories have happened in New Orleans. If I take my New Orleans scorecard, it's like 2 Mardi Gras, French Quarter Festival, Jazz Fest, 2 WrestleManias, and then just random trips in between. Number 1, the Abbey, just because Pittsfield works there. That's where I met Taya.
Is that on?
It's on Decatur.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
We drank there together.
Yes, I know, but I think we only did it like our last day or something.
And then you walked me up to Frenchman and showed me your.
Oh no, yeah, it was that was also the day with the dogs. There were dogs. Yes,
there were dogs. There's always dogs in the world.
Yeah. Always dogs. Yeah. Especially in that
there were
area.
dogs and there was
We had
Gizmo.
to stop. Oh, the dog that ripped this off my face? Oh my God, you just remembered me of that Abby story where the dog ripped this off my face because like some dude was in the bar at the Abbey at like 4 a.m. and I'm looking for Taya. And then I have Gizmo was hanging from my neck with beads. I was at the Abbey and a pit bull jumped at my face. But all he wanted was to like bite Gizmo. And I thought my life was in danger. I got free shots out of it.
No, the poor puppy just wanted his toy.
Yeah. And that's what the guy said that had the dog. He's like, my God, he thought you were playing. And I'm like, well, I didn't know this was the game I was playing. I just thought I was going to die. Anyway, the Abbey, number 1, Pittsfield bartender, boom. Best jukebox in New Orleans, by the way. But it hasn't worked in years. Number 2, the Crab's Table at Caesars.
Oh my God. I've literally never once stepped foot in that casino.
Well, why not?
I'm not a gambler. And also, when there's only one casino in a city, the house always wins. This isn't Vegas or Reno or even Atlantic City. When there's only one casino in a city, they have nobody to compete with, so they don't have to put out winning anything. Just say. Also, if you're in New Orleans, the casino is the last place you should go, in my opinion.
Yes, it is. It's the last place I go every night at 4 or 5 in the morning.
It is
Ask
true.
James.
Or it's the last place he gets before he gets back on the plane, too.
I feel like, listen, Chris is very basic because he's also Bourbon Street happy, and I am not.
No, yeah, same with me.
Chris, you're a basic bitch.
Yeah, I told him he can't.
I am loving you and joking and also talking shit.
Oh,
about
no,
you
no.
at the same
Oh, I
time.
get it. I have my favorite bead balcony.
On Bourbon.
Was that the bar that we went to where the girl and I talked makeup for like hours and then
Bourbon Heat. He's not a go out and for sit down pizza basic bitch in New Orleans, but he is. I will stay on Bourbon Street the whole time. Basic
yeah,
bitch on
and
New Orleans.
I hate Bourbon Street.
We all
but
do. We've grown out of it. I
For
kinda
me,
love
just
it.
like very briefly, my favorite New Orleans place is this place that I have on my shirt, Brew
Okay.
Cafe. It's a brewery that's right at the edge of the French Quarter and the Marigny. I fucking love this brewery. I discovered them they opened in 2017, but I discovered them when I was there for my birthday in 2019. I fucking love this brewery. I love the people that work there. I love their beer names. Their beers also are very fucking good. And they're like right there on the corner kind of Frenchman Street. Food wise, it's hard because a lot of the places I loved the first couple times I went to New Orleans shut down over the years.
Thank you, because we went after COVID and all our favorite places shut down.
I will say like Cochon with their rabbit and dumplings dish.
Yeah.
James, talk to me about the real life locations, named and unnamed, that inspired the ones in this book. Some are obvious, but what about the ones that aren't? Okay, so first, is there any specific place that was the inspiration for the Doc Box Bar? And I don't mean the name.
So really more about the location is where I would see the Doc Box Bar. When I went down last year, I went to see my brother at his band's rehearsal, and they rehearsed at like a
warehouse
over next to the Superdome, a dark, horrible, scary area. I like sent it to Brennan and I said, if I died, and I know I died doing something I love, making stupid decisions. So really the Doc Box Bar is, in my mind, is right out over next to where the Superdome is, in that area that hasn't quite cleaned itself up, that really nobody ever goes to. And then the other areas, I mean, Pirate Alley. Brendan and I spent a lot of time in Pirate Alley, so that had to be a go-to place. And then PJ's, of course, because I fucking love PJ's. You know, I had to give a shout out.
So, unless I missed something, the bar in the Bywater was unnamed. The one that your character that's based on you went to, was that BJ's or was
that was BJ's?
I loved the chaos of that, even though Chris was not there.
Chris caused his own chaos over at
How about including Anne Rice's house? Why did you decide to include hers, like, or to go with her house over like literally any other Garden District home?
Honestly, because I love Anne Rice. When I left high school, I was like, I'll never have to read again. I'm never going to have to worry about reading again. And I picked up The Vampire Lestat, and it was an amazing book. And I wrote every one of her books.
Anne Rice book you read?
That's the first Anne Rice book I read, was The Vampire Lestat.
Okay.
So then I went back and I did the interview with the vampire, and I went on everything from there on. I got an autographed book from the Garden Bookstore from Anne Rice for my 40th birthday. So I could not tell a New Orleans story and not go see Anne Rice at some point in the story. She is, even when I talk about us immortalizing ourselves as characters, I tell people like, we're like Lestat. That's how we exist in New Orleans mythology now. So yeah, it's just a love for Anne Rice.
When my husband and I, so we were legally married in Vegas, but just like a small, very quick thing. But we had our actual wedding in New Orleans. And our New Orleans wedding was on December 11th, 2021, which, by the way, they were filming the first season of The Interview with the Vampire from AMC, like 2 blocks away from the place where we rented this whole mansion, had our little like ceremony, whatever. Not only did we get married there, and they were filming it like 2 blocks away, and we saw them like filming it and everything, but Anne Rice died on December 11th, 2021.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
My first trip to New Orleans, when I was 21 years old, I ran into the guy from Girls Gone Wild before it became anything. It was literally happening there, and I was like, what the hell is this? So it's like 2000 when this is happening. So it's like, it was the craziest. It was from when I first saw that to when it became fucking wild and horrible. And yeah, so.
Okay, so Last major question. James, can you give any intel on how an ancient treasure ended up hidden inside a secret entrance that is located in a pillar of a bridge that was built in the late 1950s at the earliest? Or is that a spoiler for stories to come?
No,
James, can I answer?
Yeah, answer away.
Because the Skipperverse is fluid. Time and space is fluid in the Skipperverse.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, the Order likes to mess with people. The more we find out about the Order, the more it's about
they're bad.
control and power. Yeah, that's why what gave away when they saw the order symbol at the part of the book where they're like, oh, wait a minute, that means the Order had something to do with this. The answer is, how did it end up there? Because the Order wanted it there. The Order needed it to play out that way.
I guess also, this isn't even a question. I just want to say it's a little bit white savior-y because, listen, we're all white people here. But I do love how in the end, they're like, here's Lafitte's treasure. Let's give it back.
You know what? And that is really one of the stories I wanted to tell, because if you look at older adventure stories, Indiana Jones, they end up putting the Ark away in a warehouse. They end up doing all these things where people felt like they had a right to these properties that belonged either for
That's why I love the ending.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted the Skippers to be. It is kind of a white savior, but the idea is even when people try to protect it Warehouse 13 style and everything, what they're doing is they're taking it away from cultures. All cultures have these items. What the Skippers are doing is we don't need to
right. I said the white savior thing kind of facetiously because I feel like if the white people are the people who stole it, then they're the only ones who can give it back.
But it is the colonizing thing. It's if you've traveled around this world, if you've been to, I've been to the British Museum, you want to see treasures that came from all over the world. And I wanted to tell a story that they went back and maybe giving a bunch of magical things or a bunch of treasures back to people causes problems. Who cares? It's their stuff. We can't protect it. You know what I mean? And that's what I really wanted the drive to be. I didn't want us to be another Warehouse 13, another Indiana Jones, another Goonies, Friday the 13th, the series. Oh, we got to keep these cursed objects out of people's hands. Why? Let the treasures go where they belong.
Sorry, I probably should have prefaced the white savior thing with I'm using that facetiously because it's there's literally no other way for this to go back to where it is at this point, unless you had a POC character find it. But I imagine that at the end of the day, it's going back to where it belongs, and that's
going as far back
as about it.
I mean, he's a pirate, so it's going back as far as we can get it. We can't get it to where Lafitte took it from, you know what I mean? But we're going back as far as we can. Yeah, exactly.
Someone put it there later.
Right.
Any other last things you want to get into about the book or New Orleans before we do the last thing I want to get into?
I mean, would you all like to come to New Orleans a couple weeks from now? I kind of want to go right now.
I'm moving cross country in a couple weeks. Halloween, though, I will be there.
Ooh, we were just there last Halloween.
I've been there the last two Halloweens.
It's been a long time since I was in New Orleans on Halloween. When can we expect the next installment of the story? And if it's gonna be a while, that's okay. Unless it's George R. R. Martin. And it's going to be 18 years. We're good.
No, we're hoping to have the next story. It should be released by August 28th. I'll be down in New Orleans to promote it, and then we're going to go down from there to the Keys, and then I'll be up in Orlando with CB doing some promotion and signing some stuff around there. So at the end of August, early September.
Last but not least, recommendations. So we're going to go with James first, and then we'll go with Chris. Can you each give one? It can be more than one, but at least one book or book series and or TV show, movie or movie series recommendation that you think complements the reading of Skippers of Fortune?
So I will go with, if you're looking for movies, I would go with King Solomon's Mine, which is an Alan Quarterman adventure.
You took my answer.
From the 1980s. It's different Indiana Jones, but this guy's an adventurer. I would say as far as television shows, the Disney Plus version of the National Treasure show that they made was great. I thought it was a wonderful show. And then the closest other thing I would say, especially as we're delving into magic, there's a show called The Librarians. Those are my three answers on that one.
Thank you for mentioning the National Treasure show because I feel like that was severely underrated.
100%. 100%. It was great. I thought it wasn't going to be as good without the characters we know, but it was wonderful.
Who needs Nick Cage?
Right. I agree. Any movie without Nick Cage is fine.
All right, Chris, what about you? Anything? It's okay if you second.
No. James already stole the three things that I wanted to say.
My suggestion is a book series called The Casket Girls by Alice Arden. She is a New Orleans native. They are very YA, so they might not be everybody's cup of tea, but they involve a whole lot of witches, voodoo, the vampire thing. I'm about, but right now it's 4 books published. She's working on the 5th one, and I have loved every single one of them. If you're okay with some YA elements, they're great. And also, they're very New Orleans. They're so New Orleans. Like, if you love New Orleans, if you can overlook the YA elements, they are worth it. And
I love a good story that uses a city as a
yes,
character.
yeah. Well, as I close out the episode, just want to thank James and Chris for joining us on this not so little interview adventure. Thank you to all of you out there listening. Don't forget to check out the Skippers of Fortune Facebook page or skippersoffortune.com. And to, of course, place your book order via Amazon. You can literally just search for Skippers of Fortune. While we will continue recording and releasing podcasts throughout the next couple of months due to my aforementioned move, we are, for the most part anyway, taking a break from our live streams for the foreseeable future. To keep up to date with our upcoming podcast episodes, make sure to follow A Geek Saga on Blue Sky, Facebook, and or Instagram/threads. Or for early access, as well as fun updates from our cross-country trek, back our Patreon at patreon.com/geeksaga_entertainment. In the meantime, please don't forget to like, subscribe, or rate us 5 stars wherever you're watching or listening.
Thank you for having us on. This has been a blast.